Yes, it's true that Bitcoin got a nice bounce from the range lows, but it would be foolish to think that we are in the clear. In today's video, I'll be talking about the key levels that we need to reclaim if we are going to see some more upside for Bitcoin and the rest of the crypto market. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Without further ado, let's jump right into the video. To put it simply, Bitcoin has literally just been making lower highs. You can see here at around 124.5K, then we had another one here around $119,000, then we had another one around 117.5K, then we had another one around 113.5K, and right now we are currently failing to reclaim $112,000, which, if you remember, is the key level that we do need to reclaim if we are to see some more upside. Now, I talked about how the risk to reward was high here in terms of longing this level because it coincides with the bull market support band, because it also coincides with the bottom of the range that we've been tracking, and it also taps into the previous point of control. We've been over this enough. Now, is this bounce going to be sustained? That's the real question that we need to answer today, because right now, it is looking a little bit worrying. We wicked above $112,000, which was a key level to hold as support. However, it does appear like we are back towards the downside. Now, if Bitcoin can go ahead and reclaim this level, it's at that point in time that we start talking about this region, which is 113.5K. For us to break above here would be extremely bullish. And if we do break back above 113.5K, it's at that point that I think we start targeting these levels, which I outlined on this chart. You can see here that this is still a lower high, technically speaking. And so if this is to roll over, then we can assume that the low wouldn't be in for Bitcoin. We need to reclaim this level and then surpass 113.5K. Now, the target for my long from around these areas was actually 113.5K. So I actually do think if we are to surpass 112, we will find our way back to this region and then potentially get a little bit of a sharper rejection. That is currently my base case, and it's why I'm still in my Bitcoin long position, targeting 113, where I will be shaving some profits off of my trade and putting my stop loss at break even. Now, in the meantime, on the lower time frames, whenever Bitcoin does show a little bit of a bounce, it is still a great opportunity to trade altcoins. And what I mean by this is in my free Telegram community, just a few hours ago, we went ahead and longed Aave. Now, Aave is a pretty solid cryptocurrency, and you can see that our analyst posted the trade setup right over here, and within just a few hours, I went ahead and made $5,000 from this trade. Now, I am actually already partly out of this position, and my stop loss is at break even, so this is now a risk-free trade, but I just thought I'd share this with you because on the lower time frames, there are indeed opportunities in this market. And that reminds me, if you want to join my free premium group on Telegram, you have the first link in my description down below. All you need to do is click this link, DM me the word premium on Telegram, and I would be happy to onboard you. This is all of my own personal trade setups, along with some trade setups posted by my analysts. So if you like this kind of community, go ahead and join. Now, back to the chart. It's very clear to me that we do need to reclaim 112, and then we can potentially target the liquidity around 113.5K. This is still looking, if we zoom out, relatively bearish. And so if you did enter some shorts from around these levels, you're likely in some significant profits. I'm looking for a reversal here, and the first sign of strength would be to reclaim $112,000. Now, some of you were asking, why don't I talk about altcoins? The thing is, we need to understand the dynamic in the market as it pertains to Bitcoin specifically, because Bitcoin determines the rest of the market. If there's one key thing that I've talked about since my channel's inception, it's that Bitcoin gives you the highest risk-adjusted returns for most of the bull market. That's why my spot portfolio has been mainly in Bitcoin, and that's why in every single video, we typically cover Bitcoin before anything else. Because if Bitcoin can't show strength above $112,000, and we do end up rolling over, well, altcoins get completely annihilated. And that also brings up another topic, which is the fact that I do think that Bitcoin dominance will likely get one last leg higher before we could potentially have a full-blown altcoin season. To be perfectly clear here, I don't want to make it sound like it's all doom and gloom. Right now on the shorter time frames, you can see that yes, we are failing to hold above $112,000. However, should we reclaim this level, I do think that there's a bullish case after reclaiming 113.5 for us to make it all the way up into the 117.5K level. And you start claiming these highs, and then it's at that point that we start talking about a brand new all-time high for Bitcoin, where Bitcoin would likely lead the way and then the altcoins would follow. That's currently my base case, that the top of this bull market cycle is not in. So even if we get a further correction here, I do think that we will inevitably bounce back up. Now, what could be a key level where we would bounce back up? Because right now we are above the bull market support band. What happens if we lose that level? Well, we can talk about the 50 SMA, which, as you can see here on the 4-hour time frame, we are currently holding as support. Now, every single time that this actually flips green, it does mean that we can see some more upside. As you can see here, as soon as it flipped green, this 50 SMA tool that I'm using, we got a nice pump to all-time highs. Then it started flipping red as we dropped below it, and then we came back down. This is of course on the 4-hour time frame, but what I really want you to pay attention to is that if we actually cannot confirm above $112,000 and target some more upside liquidity, the next level below the bull market support band would actually be down here, which is around $95,000. Now, I talked about this in some of my previous videos, and it did scare some of you, because what would happen to the market if Bitcoin dropped this low? Well, if I zoom out, you can see that we've tapped into this 50 SMA several times before to hold it as support before a next leg higher. Now, this would be the make or break zone if we start losing the bull market support band. I just thought I'd talk about all scenarios here, but this would be a level where I would max bid, and I mean very, very aggressively, if we get the opportunity to bid here. Right now, though, on the shorter time frames, as I said, all I'm looking for is for Bitcoin to reclaim $112,000 and for this to not just become another lower high. Now, why didn't I already enter a short here when we got this initial rejection on the lower time frames? Well, to answer that question, I do need to refer to the liquidation heat map. Now, I talk about this liquidation map time and time again on the channel, but you can see that on the 1-day time frame, so over the past 24 hours, people are actually piling into shorts. So this tells us that on any bounces that Bitcoin seems to get, market participants want to go aggressively short. This is not a great idea in my opinion, because on the 30-day time frame, as I've been sharing with you, there is way more cumulative short liquidation leverage than there is cumulative long liquidation leverage. And typically in these kinds of ranging environments which we've been in, liquidity does act like a magnet. And so I would be surprised if Bitcoin can't at least make its way to this lower high. Now, what happens there? Only time will tell. We'll have to see how it plays out on these shorter time frames. Of course, in my free Telegram community, I will be sharing my analysis live. However, if you just want to tune into the YouTube videos, no worries there. I will update you on what can happen if we tap into this level. But right now, I still think, and I am still favoring a little bit more upside here. As you can see, we are holding the 50 SMA as support on the 4-hour time frame. And a reclaim of this region would give us higher probabilities to go ahead and fill that CME gap all the way up to around 116.8K. Now, we also want to discuss Ethereum, because ETH is still holding above a crucial support zone. Everyone has been talking about ETH nuking to below $4,000, and if Bitcoin does get a further correction, then of course Ethereum will likely move a lot lower before it can go ahead and move higher. But right now we are holding this box as support, which for scalping purposes has been a pretty good area to go long and make some nice profits before potential reversals. Now, some other news with ETH that I thought was interesting is that Ethereum's validator entry queue has reached a 2-year high with more than 860K ETH, around $3.7 billion awaiting staking. So you can definitely understand how this is obviously a bullish narrative for ETH for the next few months. Now, something else that we need to discuss here is that the Bitcoin ETFs have actually continued to increase yesterday with a $300 million in inflow. And so this is telling us that there is still a lot of demand for Bitcoin. However, for ETH's point of view, you can see that we are still seeing a little bit of outflows, which is also reflected in, of course, the Bitcoin dominance chart. We're holding support at this trend line. So honestly, here's what I think will happen. Bitcoin will likely target this liquidity, and I'll have to assess whether or not we hold it as support before seeing continuation into that CME gap. But right now, I do think that the odds are in our favor for us to grab this liquidity to the upside, given how many people want to go aggressively short here. My timeline is full of bears, and so I'm banking on the fact that we can likely target this liquidity. But honestly, it doesn't matter. We make money in this market whether we go up or down. And again, that's a reminder. If you want to know my exact trade setups, click the first link in my description down below and send me the word premium on Telegram, where I would be happy to onboard you into my free group. There's some key events that you definitely need to pay attention to this week, because we have the ISM Services PMI as well as the initial jobless claims today, and tomorrow as we wrap up the week, non-farm payrolls and the unemployment rate. This will likely tell us where Bitcoin and of course the stock market could be headed next. If we get some pretty unfavorable prints here, then it's at that point in time that we could start targeting potentially lower levels for Bitcoin before the final leg of this bull market cycle. And just a quick note before I wrap up this video, in my opinion, there's no reason to believe that the 4-year cycle is over. It has proven true up until this point, and so I'm still sticking to that theory as well. I still think even with all of the institutional adoption, we will likely have a pretty severe bear market near the end of the year, but I also think that we have one last leg higher, and the high is not in for Bitcoin, nor is it in for Ethereum and the rest of the altcoin market. So this could be a very, very exciting next few months to lock in as many gains as possible in this market before the potential bear market. And that sums up today's video. Not much has changed, but we do need to see Bitcoin reclaim $112,000 to see continuation into 113.5K. Then, once we get to that level, if we can confirm there, it's highly likely that we trend into the CME gap and we also grab some more upside liquidity. As I've shown you, so many people are currently shorting this market. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.